Today I want to talk about what is faith in Jesus? What does it mean? What did Jesus mean when he called people to trust him? And why is it incredibly, urgently important? And why is it that so often in the church we misunderstand it? We're learning from our great teacher, Jesus, from his magnum opus, the Sermon on the Mount. And he sets before us this crossroads over and over at the end of that sermon where neutrality is not an option, indecision is its own decision. And he puts it like this in Matthew chapter 7, starting with verse 21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Now, when he uses that language, not everybody who says, Lord, Lord, that double use of the name, that's like, it's possible for someone to get really good at using spiritual language and sound really pious and maybe even convince myself, oh man, I love him, Lord, 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 Lord. But if they do not do the will of my Father, they cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, he's not saying, unless you get enough righteous works in, you're not going to get to go to the good place. What is the kingdom of heaven? That is the range of God's effective will. That is the sphere in which what God wants done is done. And so it's really saying the same thing. To live in the kingdom of heaven is to live in the perfect will of God. Imagine praying, your kingdom come, but I'd kind of rather not have your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, at least in my life. It's just two ways of saying the same thing. So it's not that God's going to forbid you from entering the kingdom of heaven if you don't do his will or want to do his will. If you don't want his will, you don't want the kingdom. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, double name again, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Just because somebody considers themselves a champion for the cause of Christianity doesn't mean that they're actually becoming the right kind of person. Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. We never had an interactive, real, authentic, engaging relationship. Away from me, you evildoers. Because you did not do the will of the Father. Primarily, you did not love. You did not give. You didn't live in humility. Now, I want today to try to make this really clear. Read the author who is the best on this subject that I know, George MacDonald. This is from a book called Knowing the Heart of God. MacDonald was a Scottish writer and preacher in the 1800s. And he had a terribly clear urgency on this topic. I'm going to read quite a lot, but it will be worth it to stick around. So stick around. I say this not because of me, but because of him. We can never come to know Jesus as he is by believing any theory about him. What I would point people to is a faith in the living, loving, ruling, helping Christ. It is not that Christ did this or that his work wrought that which will save us. Rather, it is faith in the man himself who did and is doing everything for us. Do you ask, what is faith in him? I answer, the leaving of your way, your objects, yourself, and the taking of his and him. The leaving of your trust in other people, in money, in opinion, in character, in religious doctrines and opinions, and then doing as Christ tells you. I can find no word strong enough to serve for the weight of this necessity, this obedience. And as we've talked about before, this is not rote, mindless, robotic conformity, rule following. It is full of initiative and creativity and heart and love. It's following what Jesus said, to love God above all, to die to yourself, rightly understood, to become the servant of everybody, to care for the poor. Freely you have received, freely you have given. Will you do this or not? This is what Jesus presents us to. It is the terrible heresy of the church that it's always been presenting something else than obedience as faith in Christ. It is better, MacDonald writes, to be an atheist who does the will of God than a so-called Christian who does not. Let's say that again. It is better to be an atheist who does the will of God than a so-called Christian who does not. This is exactly what Jesus is talking about. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? Do you want to live by faith? Do you want to know Christ aright? Do you want to awake and arise and live, but do not know how? I will tell you. Get up and do something the Master tells you. The moment you do, you instantly make yourself a disciple. Instead of asking yourself whether you believe or not, we can so easily go down that kind of rabbit trail, get all kinds of questions, all kinds of doubts. Those are worth considering, but they will not get me to life. Instead of asking yourself whether you believe or not, ask yourself whether you have this day done one single thing because he said do it, or abstained because he said do not do it. I do not say you will not have, as a matter of course, done this or that good thing that fell into harmony with the words of Jesus. But have you done or not done any act as a conscious decision made because he said to do it or not? It is simply absurd to say you believe or even want to believe in him if you do not do anything he tells you. If you can think of nothing he ever said as having consciously influenced your doing or not doing, you have no ground to consider yourself his disciple. To such he says, why did you not do the things I told you? Depart from me, I do not know you. And yet, you can at once begin to be a disciple of the living one. You can, no matter what you know, never been to church, never memorized a word of the Bible, you can begin to become his disciple right now. How? By obeying him in the first thing you can think of in which you are not obeying him. We must learn to obey him in everything, and so must begin somewhere. Let's begin at once. Now, if you're wondering, where do I start? I think of a book by George Withhold that has been so powerful in my own life, a novel called George Wingfold's Curate, about this pastor who wakes up and realizes he has no idea what he believes. And then it occurs to him, this question from Jesus, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? That he had never done anything just because Jesus said to do it. And he goes out to visit a grieving old woman because he knows that that would be something that Jesus would want him to do. It is an act of love. And he begins to be a disciple, and that puts him on the road. There is no way to be on the road of discipleship without doing as this man says. Not mechanically, not legalistically, from the heart. He knew what he was talking about, but we'll never know it if we don't do what he says. How can you be made capable of trusting him? Neglecting the things he says, there is no soil in which your faith can grow. So, now here's some real practical possibilities for you. You listen for God to speak to you and then just say, okay, I'm going to do the next thing. Have you or I today dismissed even once an anxious thought for tomorrow because Jesus told us to? Just say to that thought from the will, God will take care of me. Have you ministered to any needy soul or body and kept your right hand from knowing what your left hand did, telling nobody of your action? Have you this day begun to leave all and follow him? Did you set yourself not to criticize, talk against, or judge others? Did you bring fair and righteous judgment to your decisions? You can do that right now. Are you wary of covetousness? Did you forgive your enemy and do him good or show him kindness? Have you this day given of money, of time, of possessions, of skill, or of compassion to someone who asked of you? Have you shown consideration, done good, returned kindness for a wrong, extended patience, been a servant, rejoiced in adversity, taken the role of humility before others, prayed for someone you don't like, trusted God to supply a pressing need? Have you done any of these things, suppressing your natural tendency to the contrary, and done them with rejoicing, because Jesus said to do them. Tell me something you have done, are doing, or are trying to do because he told you. If you cannot, it is no wonder you have difficulty trusting him. Of course, I know no man or woman can yet do what Christ tells them aright. But are you trying? Obedience is not perfection. It's making an effort. This is the great crossroads, the great decision that Jesus presses upon us, which for some reason gets fuzzed up and lost in our day. Will you do what I say? How do we come to trust anybody in our life, a doctor or a financial advisor or a coach or a mentor? There's only what you got to do what they say, and then you find out, did they know what they were talking about? Do they understand reality? And it is supremely true with him. And so that cry comes across the centuries, now today, to me and to you. What's the next right thing right now? I'm going to go do it. For me, it will be calling a friend. What's the next right thing that you will do because Jesus said to do it? Make it a golden rule day, because it's his rule.
If you enjoyed that teaching, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes in this series, Insurmountable, which is all about Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. You can also head over to our website, becomenew.com, where we have over 700 10-minute teachings, all dedicated to helping you grow spiritually one day at a time. My name's Tim, and I'm a part of the team here at Become New. Heyo. Just want you to know this is so much more than a YouTube channel. It's really a community of people who are brought together not by our strengths or our ability to achieve, but by our weaknesses and our need for help from God. So we're glad that you're here. If you have a prayer request, there's a group of us who meet each weekday, Monday through Friday, to pray for viewers just like you. So you can send us your request to the number 855-888-0444. We'd love to pray for you. We're glad that you're here. We'll catch you next time.